Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we were joking about your background. You got flowers back there. It's looking very prim and proper. I like it.
Thank you. It is not spring outside, but I'm making it spring inside.
I feel you. All right, so for everybody, Katie was actually the second ever guest on Best Served Live, and we could not, the powers that be in the interwebs just would not allow this thing to broadcast, and we lost the episode completely. And I just want to let everyone know, it was probably the best interview ever had in the history of the internet. I mean, it had to be up there with like Oprah and Michael Jackson. It was going to get it to like 90 million views or whatever. So we're gonna basically try round two. But I was really excited about that conversation. I was grateful to kind of get your perspective in a leadership role early on in this, and we joked about how have we learned a lot more in the 2 weeks since we talked? I don't know. I feel like I've learned a lot and forgotten every bit of it. So interested to catch up with you on that. So
yeah,
here's what we're going to do for everybody. We're going to break up kind of Katie's insights into what's happening and kind of the individuals working within the industry and then the businesses, the small independently owned restaurants within, because she's got lots of information and I'm going to share a couple things as we go. So let's talk about our unsung hospitality heroes. You know how important they are to me personally, to Best Served Podcast. They're struggling. A lot of them are suffering. I got hit up 4 or 5 more times while I was doing the last interview just about unemployment. I got my PIN, but I can't get on, all these different things. So give them some perspective from your point, kind of seeing things as they're playing out.
Yeah, it's been really heavy. And I remember the last time we spoke, round one, the infamous interview. Thank you. No pressure at all.
Best interview ever, Katie.
So last time we spoke, it was really, it was right after the dining room closure. And I was, I had sent out this survey to our restaurant members and had just seen like the thousands of employees that were being laid off. I saw these survey responses coming in, and it was a really, you expect it, that people are going to get laid off. Everyone knew the situation, but to see the numbers of our neighbors, our friends, and, we all know a few of those people at least. And it was pretty jarring. And, since then, I will say some things have changed and we have learned a lot as far as unemployment. And the CARES Act passing about a week and a half ago really did a lot these folks that have been furloughed or laid off, they're expected to make 90 to 105% of their normal pay, thanks to the extra $600, up to $600 a week that the CARES Act can provide, which is just huge. So I think a lot of people, as long as you're a taxpayer and eligible for unemployment, we know that there's a really good chunk of our industry that is not. So there's other organizations and people working on how to support that group, that part of our hospitality population. But for those that are eligible for unemployment, the benefits are fantastic right now. So I think a lot of us can kind of just take a deep breath and know that, once your process, it is a long process to actually, wait for your specific day where your last name lines up with blah, 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 blah. And, you finally navigate your way through this application and submit it. Once you are getting your checks, we can breathe a little bit knowing that most of these workers in our hospitality community are taken care of right now and can pay rent and can buy food. And, just kind of go, there's plenty to worry about, but at least the essentials are taken care of. So that has been a great deal of progress since you and I last spoke. And, to put some numbers to that, it's the hospitality industry is 10% of Colorado and our country's workforce. So we're looking at, last I heard, it's something like 7 million Americans in this industry that have been laid off in the last 3 weeks. So that's it's an enormous amount of our population, but I think strength in numbers here. We're now realizing how important those people are, and really hoping to take. I've seen a lot of people move really fast to take care of those folks. So between unemployment, some private companies, like a lot of big beverage companies are doing, and like the National Bartenders Guild are doing grants and specific financial support for the hourly workers and people that have been furloughed. So plenty of those. I mean, I'm sure some of those funds have been snatched up quickly, but there's a lot of fast-moving companies that have really dedicated a lot of money to supporting those workers. So really happy to see that support, and people jump up to really show that we're all in it together.
Yeah, hospitality is really presenting itself as such a necessity. Sometimes restaurants can be a luxury, seemingly, yet it's clear how fundamental they are to so many individuals, to so many communities, to so many livelihoods. So it's unbelievable to like recognize that now that we don't have it and can't take all of those interactions and transactions for granted. And the unemployment has been really interesting. To your point, the amount of money going into that system and support is massive, unprecedented, completely unprecedented. And it's polarizing. You and I have joked about how polarizing so many things are right now. And the contradiction of you can get a lot of financial support and it could be 90 to 105%. Yet the inhumane process of getting on there and people saying, I called 117 times in a row and now I've been on hold for 3 straight hours, all these things. That's hard. And so much empathy for how hard that is. And also, you're going to have to grind and hustle just like you do in restaurants every day to get that money.
Yeah.
It's hard because for our industry, it's interesting. This right now is our face-to-face communication, yet we're not face-to-face. And so for an industry and a people that are so entrenched in high touch hospitality, in direct contact with people at all times, too much contact quite often, just bumping each other throughout the restaurant. That's been a big challenge. So I can really appreciate kind of knowing that this is part of what we're just kind of figure out, because we're really good at bad news. We don't like no news in this industry.
Totally. And, where there was a period of time there where hours felt like days and days felt like weeks, just because everyone in this industry moves so fast. There's such excellent problem solvers when they're in control. But when we're not in control is when time, we can't really handle it. Like, it's like time is moving so slow when we can't take action on something. We're waiting for something like the federal government or the unemployment process to move along. It's really, it's really a humbling experience. And but it's been great to see. So to circle back on one of your last comments, it's been so awesome to see certain restaurant groups and restaurant operators like really, so that say they furloughed 90% of their employees. A lot of groups, at least in my purview, have been creating like a resource sheet and walking their, which they still call their team members. And I think that's a testament to how they're approaching this process of walking them through unemployment, gathering any information that they might need for their application, directing them to all kinds of different grants and funds, feeding them weekly, daily. Some of the operators in this town have daily family meals for their furloughed employees. So that, I have goosebumps, like people taking care of their people, even though they're not able to employ them anymore, just shows up in so many different ways right now. And it's pretty profound. So there's a lot of, I have to just look towards the best examples. I know there's plenty of really crappy situations out there of people that are not being taken care of, but I'm just I'm so grateful and so proud of those folks that have really stepped up and have led their teams through this with the best support that they could possibly give. So
yeah, cool. You really kind of find who we are at the deepest level when you put into a situation like this. And so you see a lot of people going to support and kindness, and then other people just going into their shell. And so I really appreciate anybody that's taking that leadership moment, because we need it. Like, we need it so desperately right now to have that community and that leadership and that camaraderie. So I'm with you. The amount of amazing people doing amazing things in this moment is clear, and I want more people to do that. Like, it's been a big thing for me, is to be like, here's a model, here's something that somebody else is doing, you could also do this. And so one of the things that you said that I think is important is, I've heard from several restaurateurs, they said, we reached out to our insurance companies, our payroll companies, whoever can help us navigate some of this. And when I had Cher Hobbin from the Colorado Department of Labor on, she specifically mentioned that restaurants can definitely help streamline the process for their employees if they reach out through their channels and not the individual channels, to then let them know, hey, I have team members that are going to be laid off. I have 75 people that are getting laid off. And what can we do to kind of get them into the pipeline as seamlessly as possible? What resources, things like that. So definitely do. If you are an individual watching right now and there's still a strong relationship with your, I don't even know what to call it, your former restaurant, your furloughed restaurant, reach out to them and find out if they have access to any of those resources, so that you don't have to necessarily be completely alone in this process. And on the other side, if you are a restaurant, know that you have an opportunity to help streamline that process as well. So really appreciate that. Anything else that's top of mind for you right now when it comes to the individuals working within the industry?
Yeah, for sure. And you alluded to it. I worry about this population not being at work because of the fact that most of these individuals get so much fulfillment and purpose out of that human interaction and serving others. So, this is not my focus at this point, but there are plenty of incredible mental health organizations around with best practices. And there are, some of those restaurant owners that I mentioned that have been guiding their employees through this process. That has been top of mind, like trying to have one-on-one connections with all of these team members that aren't working every 48, 72 hours, just to make sure everyone's okay and to get a pulse on their team. So I know that's top of mind for everyone in this industry. And I just think, my ask to everyone is just to check in on everyone, just to, say, I'm thinking about you, or how are you? Do you have everything you need? Just really, really simple. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Just check in on people, let them know you're thinking about them and that they're going through a hard time. Doesn't have to be anything beyond that, and can just mean so much. It's hard not to be working. It's gonna be crazy to see how long this lasts, and I think everyone seems to be hanging in there right now. But yeah, keep checking in on them through this entire closure, this whole process. We can't have these face-to-face interactions, but we need to have way more, text, video calls, just call, pick up the phone, and call your people.
That's a really important point. I want to hover on that for a moment, because had several people from Heather with Kesed Wellness, who has done amazing work to get free consultations. Definitely check out Kesed Wellness. I'll get them linked up here in a second. Chow and what John Hinman has done with the Colorado or the Culinary Hospitality Outreach and Wellness Group, also based in Denver. Just had on yesterday Megan Knowles, who's a health, life, and recovery coach who came from the industry. We worked like 4 doors apart from each other on Larimer Square back in the day. And so there's just a lot of humans willing to support each other. So we need to continue to do that, because, to your point, we are very focused on flattening the curve. God, all this terminology that I pretend like I know what it means because it's social distancing. Like what? Why do I know what social distancing and act like I've been talking about it for my entire life? I don't know what
it does really feel like years.
So, we're really trying to focus on that, and that is because we want to ensure that our populations don't get ravaged by sickness and by death. It's very dire in that way. And a little bit the mental health aspect of that gets pushed to the side a little bit because this is crazy, there is such a polarizing thing. Being in a restaurant is therapy for a lot of people, and it also is the conduit for a lot of substance abuse and bad behaviors and things like that. And so we need to recognize that now you're put into a vacuum that could potentially be pretty detrimental to your mental health. Mm-hmm. And so that, I think, is something that I've been trying to touch on and talk about, and I've been sharing personal stories about that a lot. For you, as somebody, again, in that position where you're kind of a trusted resource, a leader, a conduit for information and things, when you're thinking about that aspect of it, you already mentioned some very practical things to do. Talk about it holistically as far as the motivation you're trying to instill in people to really pay attention to mental health.
Yeah, so we started a campaign a couple of weeks ago called We Got This Denver. Yep. It's a hashtag on Instagram, and crazy, it has over 4,000 posts at this point. And it's, we started it off from like just wanting to share some messages of resilience and inspiration from Denver's restaurant leaders. And we hoped and knew that it would spread, to different industries, individuals. And it's been like one of the highlights for me is just looking through that hashtag and just scrolling through to see how different people are spreading hope and just sharing positivity. But in a lot of those initial messages, Josh Wolcon from Steuben's, Vesta, and Ace comes to mind. Juan Pedro from Tap and Burger Concepts and crafted, what's his other company called? Bardot, Oshkara, Senor Bear, Culinary Creative, that's it. They both, their messages were really strong around mental health and just, taking not only looking out for your teams that are, there's two categories now, like the people that you have been able to keep on your team and how they're working harder and more stressed than ever. And then there's the people that you've had to let go that have, same amount of problems and need to be checked in on. But then there's, the next level is making sure that you as a leader who is making all these decisions and trying to lead your teams through this process, making sure that you are taking care of yourself as well. I know that, the first week or two of all of this was nonstop. Like everyone was working all day, all night to try and get some answers, guidance, try and be, as proactive as possible in helping their teams, making huge decisions that will affect the months and years to come. And, everyone, it's really easy in that position to forget to eat, to forget to do all of the things that you need to make those good decisions and to take care of yourself. So it was great to hear Juan and Josh really talk about like reminding their peers in this industry that yes, you have to take care of your team members, give them the resources, but that starts with yourself, and make sure that you're practicing that too, since this is a marathon. It very quickly went from a sprint to a marathon, and all of us need to make sure that we're in this for the long haul and that we're able to be strong, calm, and collected throughout this whole process of getting reopened and supporting each other.
Yeah, the checking in, it's just such a simple thing. Sometimes we forget what a massive impact that just a check-in with somebody can have. And I've joked about it. I use comedy to like contextualize the world. It's the way that I think and communicate. Yet I continuously talk about how this interaction with you is so thank you, because this is so therapeutic. In this moment. It's like and it's freeing too, because I don't give a shit if anybody watches this to the point that like it's not about me being able to like have this show. I only care if 10 people click on one of the links that we just shared and goes and gets some support, or one group of individuals or one restaurant like starts a text thread and shares stupid memes. That to me would be the most amazing thing that could ever happen in this moment. And so this is just my form of therapy. Everybody needs something. And we kind of know, and you especially, whoever is watching, that one person, two person, five people within your inner circle, within your restaurant, within that extended family who needs a check-in even more than others. You just know those people. And now is not the time to kind of crawl into your shell. Now is the time to be more gregarious than ever in the way that we communicate, to bring a little bit of levity. So, yeah.
And one thing on that, that I learned through this mental health training last year, we all know it, but it was reinforced. It's like some of the most positive and extroverted people in your life that might appear to have it together the most sometimes need these check-ins the most. Is it's those personalities that are fueled by giving for purpose, that need to be also taken care of. So for those people, that you might be like, oh, they always have it together, like they don't need anything from me. Please check in on them too, because their cups are empty and they're, feeling like everyone else is more important than them right now, and they need you too.
I could not agree more. I thought you were talking about me that whole time. Was that what just happened?
Check in with Jensen too.
I cannot tell you. I mean, just in unemployment, I've gotten over 1,000 comments through dozens of different Facebook groups and so many DMs. I'm struggling. I'm so like rapid response and always responding to people no matter what, and I'm losing track of where all this is going because there's so many people reaching out. And honestly, anybody who's reached out to me that says, they kind of say sheepishly, hey, sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if you knew anything about this. Don't ever, if you're watching, you, Katie, anybody, ever hesitate to reach out, because you are helping me almost more than I ever feel like I'm helping you. So that for sure resonates with me a lot. And I think about what you're talking about. I mean, in our community, Anthony Bourdain was that person, the biggest personality, the person that so many of us look to as the captain of our pirate ship, all of those things, was struggling day in and day out, or a Robin Williams in more of a broader context of somebody who just is struggling. So I appreciate that quite a bit. It's not just the mousy, quiet, shy person who's in trouble. It's anybody and everybody who just doesn't feel like they have that support. So I can appreciate that.
Listen to what they have to say. You don't have to say any huge words of wisdom. In fact, sometimes that is not helpful at all. Just let people vent a little bit. Listen to what they're up to and what their challenges are right now. So no need to prepare anything profound.
Yep, I could not agree. Clearly, I never do. Let's just talk, and we might say one or two interesting things, and I'll share a couple links. And if that brings value to one human in hospitality, then I will continue to hustle my ass off, because I have no idea what I'm actually doing. I'm just going to keep doing it.
You're doing important work right now. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. That's it. Grateful for the opportunity. You're busy. You are making shit happen on the daily and supporting your community in a way. So the fact that we can take half an hour to catch up and share with people something that maybe brings some value is such a win-win for me. So restaurant industry, there's 660,000 plus restaurants. 90% of those are independently owned, 15.6 million employees. And then if you talk about the level of infrastructure and jobs and industries that rely on restaurants, it's massive amounts of people that are impacted by closures of restaurants. We know, again, CARES Act, PPP, SBA, EIDL, all these things that now supposedly are in my vernacular. I still don't understand. I know it's something you've been sharing, and so many people are trying to navigate it, figure out, is their money going to run out? What does 75% of forgiveness mean? Blah, 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 blah. Let's not get into the minutia of what it is. I'm going to share a couple of resources. Yeah, it's too much. It is such a personal decision for every owner, for every operator, for their circumstance to tell somebody this is what you're supposed to do. It's just not feasible.
Yeah.
However, you're navigating that space, and what are just the high level conversations that you're having just to let people know where to look, what the lines of communication are, so that they can kind of find out this information for themselves. Give us a couple of those high level thinking about navigating that.
So EatDenver has, I'm echoing. I wonder if that's me. Let me know if anything on your side. So EatDenver has tried to do what I can to really distill the information that is super relevant to restaurants through all of this, whether it's city level closures or regulations, state level support, or even like the federal aid that we were just talking about. So there's organizations like ours that are giving the alerts and the information that is possible. EatDenver specifically has been an amazing platform because we have a conversational listserv. So I can share alerts and people can ask questions while having a live dialogue about it. So that's been a really unique platform for people, and really has made EatDenver more helpful and really critical than ever when people are trying to make decisions. They're getting some real information from me that came from a trusted source, whether that's like the Treasury's website, regional SBA administrator, trusted CPA, these great people that I am able to tap into. But they're able to get their peers live input on that as well. So a lot of people see it as, some of the most trusted brains in the industry on this listserv that are, having a great dialogue about best practices and what they're doing and advice that they would give without, getting into like legal advice or anything too specific. So it's been kind of a support group in a way, and a great information share. And we always, as an organization, we always love to have a dialogue and a discussion versus the organization telling and sharing information down to our members. So we always feel like information gets more and more valuable as our community discusses it and people give more input. So that's been really helpful. As far as folks and organizations that I look to, the Senator Gardner has been really a great lifeline. His team they've been super responsive to any questions that we have for clarification. They've been really amazing as far as listening to us about how restaurants will perceive and use the PPP and the EIDL, the SBA administrator. Lots of great people here, but I always tell people, so there's all these PDFs floating around and who the hell knows where they came from? It could be a draft of something that a senator's team came up with or whatever. Always try and find, sharing links, live links to trusted websites is so much better and credible than these PDFs that are sometimes outdated within 24 hours. So I tell people, go to the Treasury's website as it pertains to the PPP. There's tons of updates on a very specific page for that program. And then related to the PPP, speak to your own bank. They have the formulas, the list of materials they need from you. And hopefully, I'm still hearing from some restaurants that they're striking out with their existing banks on getting an application through. Most people I know have been able to get one approved, and even a portion of them have been funded already. But there's still small operators out there that haven't been able to get an application through, which is is crushing to hear and like really disappointing. But hopefully once banks get through their debt accounts, then their checking accounts, those clients of theirs, that there will be enough room for them to take on new clients for these loans, but they've been prioritizing existing loan clients, checking, whatnot. So I think I did more than answer your question, but basically, basically looking, the government websites have never been so helpful. It's like people are trying to find these answers through like news articles or their friends, and just go to the Treasury website, go to the City of Denver COVID-19 website, check those first. Go to the Colorado Restaurant Association's COVID-19 website. They're all serving incredible purposes right now, and they are where your friends are going to point you to, hopefully.
Yeah, I want to reiterate the points that you made, that I loved all of them. And trusted resources, please do not go looking at, I don't care if it's political for you. Don't go to CNN or MSNBC. Don't go to Fox News. Don't go to anywhere except the people that are actually driving the decision making around that in this moment. It is just too important and too shifting sands to be able to like look to that. If I look at a news article that might editorialize, fine, to try and get some context, but that is not where I'm looking for my information. Mm-hmm. And if I do see an article, it basically just spurs me to go, oh, did they get a new piece of information from Treasury? I better go back and check with that. So I actually shared Treasury's full site on COVID. I shared the fact sheet on COVID, which will also have an update date on it. So like be aware of when that stuff is being updated, so you're aware of what's happening today. For me personally, being a 1099 is most of the work that I do. It's like, well, can I apply for PPP? Yes, but is there going to be money left? I don't know. Like all of these different things are challenging to navigate. Yet here's the thing that I'll say, and I'll say this to restaurant people because we like bad news more than no news. This is just what you're going to have to do. It's going to suck. It does suck. It is hard and challenging. And should it be easier? Yes. And should there be better communication? Probably. Mm-hmm. Yet this is just what we're going to have to figure out, like we always do. We always figure shit out. I don't know how, but we always get through the surface. It's just in our DNA. So I really appreciate that. Any couple last thoughts that you have?
I totally agree with you on the editorials, being really important to round out the context and story too. And then on top of that, just understanding, it seems really simple, but understanding like what part of government works on what piece of all of this. Like I'm still trying to wrap my head around that sometimes, but knowing that, if you're talking about the PPP, it's a federal program. So that's the Treasury, and people that influence that program are your senators and your state representatives, and just knowing who your people are for certain things. We've certainly gotten into more advocacy than EatDenver normally would, just out of straight necessity and desperation. So yeah, the more I learn about that, Jensen and I were talking about, the more I forget other things from our normal lives. So I don't know how long I'm holding on to any of this information, but it's been a really fascinating exercise in working with our mayor's teams, our governor's teams, and really having a great dialogue with our state reps.
Yeah, biggest takeaway on that front, and maybe for everybody when it comes to navigating unemployment or when it comes to navigating the potential disaster loans, all these different things, know what the resource that you need to be going to. So it is, your state's Department of Labor and Employment, it's the Treasury, it's SBA specifically. So that's going to be very important. And then having somebody trusted voice through the process. So, we've had on Heather Lene Spidell, who's a CPA who's been working heavily to get as many resources out. Mm-hmm. We talked to AJ Shake, who's with Community Banks of Colorado, and he shared with us their process and being an SBA specialist, kind of what he's hearing from the bank side, and was just really open with you know what I know, and we're trying to communicate as quickly as possible. That was interesting. You said talk to your bank, and maybe we'll touch on this and then wrap it up. What's been very fascinating to me is you run an independently owned restaurant network, right? That community. What I continuously am hearing, and it's anecdotal, but this is what I'm hearing, is the big banks don't care, and the little community banks care so much about their community that they're having to figure it out and are very communicative and are pushing through a lot of those applications sooner and faster than some of the big banks for more individual small businesses.
Yeah.
Some of the big are the ones that are pushing multiple $10 million, and the little guys are doing everything from 5,000 to, $1 million, things like that. So anyway, I'm just interested to see our industry, especially. I feel like we're going to see a lot more coming closer to home in a lot of different ways. Yeah. Banking is a strange one that I didn't expect, but Wells Fargo especially is one that, a lot of people were like, I've been banking with them for 20 years, and now I'm finding a small little bank like Collegiate Peaks or somebody like that. So I'm interested in that as a dynamic as a whole coming out of this, where we're thinking in a smaller scale for community in all aspects. So I'm very interested in that. Even just where you get your food from. We're talking about farmers are really struggling right now, and all of a sudden we feel a sense of urgency more than ever to how do we support that farmer. I hope that in small business and the individuals working within those businesses and the small banks, all those things sustain this. So I don't know where I'm on a tangent there, but it's just
it's an important one. So two things on that. So one, it is really interesting, that process of, we were kind of on this like live conversation through EatDenver on who was having success with what banks and where they were at. And it was like the Collegiate Peaks and the Alpines of the world that had their shit together and were really, really able to be nimble and proactive in communicating directly with their clients on this, and having, they were able to create this process a lot easier and get their people taken care of, whereas the larger banks had to prepare for everyone, this huge floodgates to open last Friday, not this past Friday, but 10 or so days ago. I can't keep track.
We're in a time vortex here.
It was crazy. I mean, it was seriously like, okay, so we have this limited amount of money for PPP for the entire country. So they're gonna, apps are gonna open on that Friday, and then people that couldn't submit an app when their banks weren't ready, it was like, okay, am I going to miss these funds? Do I have to transfer all of my banking to another bank just to get access to this program that can save my business? Or do I sit back and wait in this holding pattern while Wells Fargo opens up the waiting room? So that was crazy. And I do think that the smaller banks will get a lot more business out of this long term. And, the second thing that came to mind was, people are so, all of us have heard, like, pay attention to what businesses are doing right now, because it's really important how leaders and how companies respond to this crisis and where they show up. So I feel like just in general, like whether it's banking, which is super important, but all across the board, our eyes are open to who's sending us email newsletters, like how appropriate or relevant your company is being through all of this, or supportive. And so that's been a really cool thing to just keep my eyes open to, is like, where are people showing up? How are they reacting? And that will have a really long lasting impact on their business, and how we all want to do business with them or not. So I personally love that values are really coming out right now in a fast and big way. And I love how black and white it has been as far as supporting small business and the economic, not only the economic value and the like just intangible, like, we love our small businesses here in Denver. Like, what would we look like without them? And just like the cultural value, but also it's like our neighbors own and work in these businesses, and it's become very black and white. Like, your dollars spent at a restaurant could actually keep, your friend could keep their job there right now. It is like it is a black and white matter like that, where it's never been before, where people have actually like been able to hire back employees because of takeout and gift card sales. Like that is so cool. And you get to see the faces to the names. And yeah, it's really powerful to see it like that. Cause you know, we always talk about support your small businesses, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, it's so overused to the point where it's really hard for us to say why sometimes. And now we really know why, and we really know the value of these businesses. So a few really kind of affirming thoughts coming out of this and values. So that trying to focus on the positive pieces of that.
I love it. It's so important. And once again, this is a polarizing topic for me that you just brought up. It gave me goosebumps a little bit for sure, because I literally started the Best Served podcast because I wanted to start to, for me personally, the industry as a whole, start to value and focus on why and who before what and how. And the what and how are the day-to-day minutia, the grind, and what we serve, and our point of differentiation, and our competitive advantage, all of these different things that we have. So often we get caught up in those. And right now we don't have those. We have why and who. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I am both like in pain for the fact that I have so much empathy for so many people that are hurting and struggling through this. And I have so much like joy for the fact that we're having these meaningful conversations and are being put to the test of like, why do we truly care about this community? Who is it that we serve? So I appreciate that. This has been all about the contradictions and polarizing nature of these moments for us as an industry, as individuals. So I appreciate that conversation. Once again, amazing interview. I had no doubt it was going to be epic. I'm really grateful for the leadership that you're showing. I know that your community is as well. I know that leadership doesn't mean that you have all the answers. It means that you ask really good questions and surround yourself with really smart, talented, and good people. And you've been put in an amazing position to do that and continue to cultivate and nurture that. So
thank you. This was therapy for me too.
And we got to get some playlist items quick. Tell us a couple of the things that you are reading, because your bookcase back there is impressive. What's a couple of things that you're reading right now that maybe people can absorb in these moments to kind of have some moments of levity for themselves?
Well, one, I just read a really great op-ed from Linda that owns the Bindery.
Okay.
In the Denver Post, leading up to Easter. I thought it was really, really interesting and a great perspective on Easter during this chaos. So that's a short read. And then, let's see. I just finished Educated a while ago. Super heavy, so I don't know that I would start it right now, but amazing book if you're one of those folks that's really bored and wanting a really good story. And then I'm about to start City of Girls, which I feel like every woman in my life is either reading right now or has read in the last 3 months. So I've heard really good things. It's on Reese Witherspoon's book club and Chelsea Handler's book club, both of whom I adore. So yeah, those are two. And yeah, I've been watching, I would just say John Oliver. I'm obsessed with John Oliver. And to your point of just needing to keep it light and funny, I've been watching more late night television than ever, just needing those people to make this funny. Like it needs to be funny on some level. So Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver, SNL, also calling all my friends that crack me up the most.
You watched the SNL that was done through Zoom?
Yeah.
So I haven't watched it. Betsy was talking about it. I was like, oh, I gotta watch that. If anybody can make that crazy and awesome situation hilarious, it's SNL.
Yeah, and it's so, of course Tom Hanks was the host, so it was just good to see that man's face. Like, just love him so much. But yeah, there's like, they even say it in the intro. They're like, it's always, it's SNL at its purest. Like there's some things that are going to suck and then there's some things that are going to make you laugh. So yeah, don't expect it to be as great as like the normal layout, but it's super. There are some really funny parts, especially the dating app.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, let me know.
Really appreciate it, Katie. A great conversation once again. We'll talk again, I am sure. And we shared lots of information, valuable information into this thread. So hopefully people can utilize that. Katie, thank you for being on the show. I appreciate you.
Keep up the great work.
I'm going to keep hustling. That's all I know how to do. It's in our DNA. We're just going to keep running through walls if it clears a path for others. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thanks, Katie. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Katie. Doing really great work as kind of leading the hospitality industry community in Denver. And it definitely is spilling over into the greater Colorado state, and also just a good guideline for people across the country to have this kind of leadership, this kind of lines of communication. So appreciate it. It was a long episode because just didn't want to stop talking. I get a lot of value out of it. I am selfish as any other person, and I need to communicate with people. So thank you for anybody willing to listen to me talk to my friends, my contemporaries. I'm grateful for the opportunity. Tomorrow's episodes, 2 episodes once again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That's noon on the East, 9 a.m. on the West. I have Maxwell Boyle, who is with Stowaway Kitchen in Denver. Somebody I saw posting lots of funny stuff, really engaging, saying, outlandish things like we like to in the industry. So I'm excited to have somebody like that on the show. And then Edelyn Garcia, who is the executive sous chef at the Village Pub in Woodside, California. She was also on a full episode of the podcast, which I definitely want you to listen to as you need some moments of levity right now. Katie Osuna's episode, if you check that out on bestservedpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Katie Osuna is the host of the Copper and Heat podcast, a James Beard award-winning podcast. And she gave a shout out to Edelyn as one of her unsung hospitality heroes, somebody who mentored her early on. And they talk about, in season 1 of Copper and Heat, it's called Be a Girl, and talks about just navigating that space as a woman, toxic masculinity, all of that. And Edelyn was a big driver for kind of her having the fortitude to be a part of this crazy, crazy industry. So check out those 2 episodes tomorrow. Thanks as always. I appreciate all of the interaction and the opportunity to be able to talk to you. And I will talk to you tomorrow.